Thank you. All right, guys. Well, welcome back for another group coaching. So I've been getting different topics over the last couple of days from different agents, just different coaching topics. So actually, I'd like to open up with that just so I can see if there's anything that you have in mind that I haven't covered that I can add to my list of future coaching sessions. So if whatever you mentioned I already have in the plans, I'll let you know. But what are some other things that you guys, today we're going to focus on the MLS, specifically how to pull the stats that you need to prepare yourself for a buyer consultation. So that's what we're focused on today. But what are some topics you guys have that you want to make sure I cover in the future coaching? Be two each.
I think easy one, lead generation.
So more conversations around lead gen?
Yep.
All right, what parts of lead gen specifically would be?
Just like, because I know there's like a bunch of different types of ways that you can lead.
Sources?
Yeah, sources or,
All right,
you know, what works best for you or like, because I know there's like a big list out there.
yeah, all right, so we'll talk about sources and best practices. What else?
Well, and I kind of piggyback on that. It's like, I know that I really haven't done any research on it, and I know that you can reach it to Google. That's something that I would like some information on. And also too, like maybe like ideas on what to post on social media to lead gen.
Okay.
You know, everybody talks about lead gen on social, and it's great now, but like
How?
Like, how am I gonna be effective? Because I feel like what I'm doing is not.
Okay, cool. All right, so social media content to lead gen. Awesome.
I will also say, I mean, I know that we can go, I think, maybe or whatever it takes with MLS classes, but even just some like ways to kind of navigate through MLS. Because I was talking to Bill about my neighborhood, and he like pulled up and could see all the lists of sales that happened in my neighborhood and which realtors could be identified.
Yeah.
There isn't like one specific realtor that owns my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, I know I can ask him, but
I'll
but
give you,
there's things, there's
I'll give
things to, you know what I'm saying, like there's.
I'll give you the answer, the quickest answer. You gotta go on there and use it. You won't break it, I promise you. That's a quick one.
Go on there, but
All right, anything else you guys want to add to this? I'll take a picture of it. That way I can look at all my notes and make sure I add this. Anything else for now? All right, cool. All right, well, let's get into the focus of today. So I didn't want to take too much away from Erica's class. So Erica has a class coming up, I believe it's next week. I want to say the date was the 27th, where she was going to go into the Win with Buyers and class and actually teach about the buyer consultation process.
That's not.
But-
I thought yesterday.
Was it yesterday? Okay, so it was yesterday. I'm sorry. Were you both there then?
I was, and she's doing part two, but she's finished.
Okay, so there's a part two. Well, because it's long, yeah. So I teach that class. So what I wanted to do is just take this part real fast from step 3. So the course, when you take the whole course when we're buyers, it's a 7-step process to be more efficient with working with buyers. That's ultimately what the course is. Step 3 of the process, and obviously step 1 is lead generation. So some of the stuff that you're talking about, like that big list, is actually in step 1 in that course. In step 3, it talks about the whole buyer consultation, and I have it up on screen for you guys to look at. Now, what I want to point out, so a buyer consultation, what do you guys think should be the length of time for that? How long should a buyer consultation last? 20, 30 minutes?
20, 30.
Okay. If you can do it in 20, I'll pay you. That's never seen 20. 30 maybe, 30 to 60 minutes is what I would budget. I always budget an hour for it. And if it's like a couple, sometimes longer, an hour and a half maybe. But the reality is it's about an hour. So let's just imagine an hour. And now this right here on screen, what it breaks down is the steps of the buyer process, the buyer consultation, and then who should be speaking versus who should be listening. So for example, so let's just say this is an hour long. So essentially step 1 is roughly about maybe 5 to 10 minutes of that, and it's strictly focused on setting the stage. And who speaks? You as the agent speaks. You're doing most of the speaking to set the stage. Then as you get into the needs analysis, this is where you start to educate your buyer, aka we're talking about the stats of the market. That happens here. You're doing a lot more listening. So you're still doing some talking, but you're doing a lot more listening. Then eventually step 3 of the process is where you share your value proposition. We're not going to get into all that today, but this is where you would share your value proposition. that would cause them to want to hire you as their real estate agent. Step 4, you're gonna set service expectations, so basically what to expect working with you. So some of the things that might be in that part of the conversation is, hey, I do showings on the weekends at 1, 3, and 5. Or hey, I don't do showings on Sundays, that's day for the family. So this is where you set the expectation of how the working relationship is gonna go. And also, how do you win with them? Because you're also gonna wanna, talk to them, all right, well, how do I best communicate with you? Is it call, is text better? Is it a group chat with everybody involved in the buying process better? This is where we make sure that we know what's expected of each other. This is also kind of where I cover some of the do's and don'ts of buying. So like, don't go buy another car. Don't go buy a boat while we're going through this whole process. Step 5, this is where you close for the agreement. This is where now you actually get a buyer loyalty agreement signed. Well, there's a lot of limiting beliefs about getting a buyer loyalty agreement signed, and that's a whole group coaching, which actually I'm gonna add that to the list here. You guys find value in that?
Yeah.
Specifically on getting the buyer agreement signed?
Yeah, I've been on the recon conversation and addressed it a little bit, but I think it's always a touchy subject. I think people are afraid to ask to get it signed.
Right, because they're not running a business.
What?
Because they're not running a business. If you look at it this way, a buyer loyalty agreement, look at it this way, would you list somebody's property without a listing agreement? Why?
But they're not tied to.
I tied to what else?
Well, if you're gonna potentially pay for advertising, you're spending time, money, and you wanna have that loyalty there.
Yeah. Now, if we saw somebody listing properties that they didn't have a listing agreement for, would we think that they're crazy? Like, we'd be laughing about it, right? It's the same thing the other way around. We should be kind of laughing about the fact that, wow, they're working with buyers that buyers are not even committed to them. It's no different. So any limiting belief about it, literally, it's just not, it's in your head. It's in your head. So my advice to you is learn early how to present the buyer loyalty agreement. The class goes into it a lot, but I will in a coaching session also cover it as well in the coming weeks. Because the reality is, when you're out there working with buyers with no agreement, it's the same thing as taking a listing with no agreement. We wouldn't do it. All right, so that's going to be step 5 of the process, closing for the agreement. And then step 6 is establishing the next step, right? So if you notice, like, the speaking list is right in the middle. So essentially it's a conversation going both ways between you and the buyer. So this is where I'm starting to say things like, Adam, all right, great. What I'm going to do now is get a list of homes together. I'm going to do some research, and then, so let's say it's Thursday. Tomorrow, I'm going to send those homes to you, and we're going to pick 4 for us to tour this weekend on Saturday. We're setting the stage for weekends. Okay, so that's the overall layout of it. If you guys want to take a picture of it, take a picture of it now, so you can kind of start thinking about, okay, what should be going into a buyer consultation, and I'll elaborate further in different group sessions. And whenever Erica does a part 2, definitely intended. We're going to go back now really to the part where we start getting into the stats. So in the material, what's really neat, let me show you guys this. And the material is going to go into like each part of the 6 parts I just showed you. Let me jump straight to part that we're needing to talk about today. Hold on. Okay, so in part 1, it talks about setting the stage. And then part 2 starts getting into the mortgage process. But here's the part I want to show you right here. So we've set this, we've opened up the stage, we've given them maybe a little tour of the office, assuming we're doing a tour here. And then here, before we start educating the buyer and starting to find out what their needs are, we're starting to educate them about what the market's doing. So notice here it says the current script. It says it says here, educating your buyer is all about current market conditions and how you will help find a property. You should also be current on the sales activities and trends for your local area. So let's just kind of go along with the read the script. So it says at the moment we have to be in a, what kind of market we're in right now? What kind of market we're in right now?
Buyers.
Which one's right?
It's not a buyer because there's less houses, right?
It's not a guess, it's a number. Why is it a seller's market then? Explain to me why.
have to pull up
The months of inventory.
yeah, it has
Are
to do
gonna-
with the month of inventory and also probably has.
No, you got, that's it,
Uh,
don't overcomplicate, that's it. Month of inventory, so 0 to 4 months is sellers.
He said there's still more demand than supply and 1 in 3 homes is selling every third day.
5 to 6 months of homes is stable. I would almost at this time call it transitioning. That's like that transition period, and then 7+ months is what do you think? Price. So to the point about Jeff's stats, Jeff's, what was the number on that particular one that Jeff showed you?
Well, these are just another,
Okay.
but 1 in 3 homes is selling every 30 days.
So
There's still more demand than
1
supply.
in 3, is because the absorption rate that Jeff showed us was right around 33%. So although technically, yes, we are in a seller's market based on the amount of inventory available, based on the amount of homes coming in the market right now, active for sale, only 1 in 3 are actually selling. I would argue we're transitioning, but the numbers do say, hey, still a strong seller's market. Now, this actually is helping me prove the point about the fact that real estate is really hyper local. And when I say that, I'm meaning this. Yes, Collier County is that 1 in 3. But could it be different? Let's say Naples Park, Golden Gate City, Golden Gate Estates, North Naples, East Naples, like, could there be differences as we get into the different neighborhoods? Absolutely. So, you know, what I'm about to show you really can cover you. I mean, there's skills you can use also during your listing presentation. I'm going to focus today really on how to present it on the buyer side. And I'll probably make it a little bit on both as I go throughout. But keep that in mind. So okay, so we're talking about months of inventory here. Let me just label this so we all know what that is. What other stats do you think are, so this is the key stat first of all. You should be showing your buyers this. What's another stat that we should be showing buyers? What do you guys think it is? Or some other stats?
I would say, how many new listings are coming on,
So active listings,
how many price reductions?
why do we want to show buyer that?
Well, because, I mean, that kind of helps them to understand that there's a little bit of more, I would say, flexibility in the market
Okay.
for price, because we're coming out of, and this is me talking, we're coming out of being in where everything was really, you know, kind of getting really high, and it seems like things are settling down just a little bit. It's not like there's huge price reductions, but the prices are coming down, which means there's a little bit more flexibility in the negotiation process.
Okay. Everything's all about how you present it, but I'm going with you. So actives, pending, I'm gonna write it down, pending, I'm sorry, not pending, reductions.
Reduction.
Yes, sir. What else, what other numbers do you think we need to talk about with buyers set the stage up front
Well, you just said pending, the pending to and close sales.
for a buyer?
No,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna just tell me why you think it would be valuable. Help her out, Adam. Do you think, would you present that to buyers at a consultation?
For pending close.
Yeah.
Well, it helps them understand how many closings there are for like a day or a month or a year or whatever, right? To get an idea of
Okay.
what's closing right now, or, you know, this house recently just sold for this much, which is the price range.
Okay. All right, so think about, okay, we're in a consultation. What other numbers do you think are important that the buyers know up front?
Days on market,
Okay, I like that one. What else?
median price.
Median, okay. And then I'm gonna, to Jennifer's point up here, so this is absorption. What else?
Neighborhoods, depending on where they're looking.
Well, we're talking about just stats.
Yeah, like stats on the neighborhood, like
Well, this is, yeah, these are the stats for that neighborhood that we're pulling. Well, what is the actual stat for the neighborhood that we want to share?
how many houses sell in the neighborhood.
Okay,
That'd be pretty much.
Okay.
I didn't close it.
All right, let me give you guys then one more. So list price to close price ratio. Here are the ones that I like to share with the buyers. I'm gonna show you how to pull them all, but here are the ones I like to share with the buyers. So I like to share number one, the months of inventory available. And during that conversation, I kind of keep it to that. Absorption could be incorporated into it. You can almost incorporate absorption into that. And I'll talk about how we do that in a little bit as I get there. So absorption can go into that. The next one that is good to share with your buyers, this one here, days on market. And then this one right here, list price to close price ratio. Could you show all of it? Absolutely. It's just going to be it's a lengthier conversation if you get into all that. Now, some of these other ones I do show, obviously sellers. With sellers, we're going to show that data. So where I'm going to show you to pull this stuff from is where you can pull everything else here that was brought up. But I don't think that you need to show every single one of them to the buyer. I never did. I always still focused on months of inventory, the list price to close price ratio, days on market, and then sometimes if it depending on what was happening in the market, I might show actives versus solds. But it depends on how that data helps me or helps me help them. So let's just talk about the obvious ones first. So Adam, have you, and this is what it says in the script. So Adam, are you aware what market, that we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market?
No, I'm not too sure what our.
Or did you, right, most, what do you think most buyers think we're in?
We're in a
Buyers.
They want, yeah, they definitely think that. Well, here's the thing, they think whatever the news tells them, they think whatever their neighbor or something, they don't really know the actual number. They know whatever is around their world. So I kind of have fun with them. So I always will like, hey, so have you heard, so are you familiar with the term buyer's market, seller's market? And they'll say, oh yeah, I've heard that. I'm like, well, what market do you think we're in? And I have fun with that.
Whatever the news told me, pretty much, right?
Say again?
They'll probably say whatever, like CNN or Fox.
Whatever whatever their ears are listening to. So I have fun with that question. Ultimately, the goal here is for me to educate them. Hey, yeah, and sorry, I don't tell them they're wrong. They're obviously all the way wrong, but it gives me an idea of where they're at as far as their knowledge of the market. So then this is kind of where they're all get into. Okay, great. Well, let me give you an update on the market. And I'll literally pull up the graphs that I'm going to show you here in just a moment, and I'll present to them. And let's just hypothetically say, I'll actually draw this out with them too. So right now, so anywhere between 0 to 4 months of inventory is a seller's market, 5 to 6 is a stable market or transitioning market, and 7 or more is a buyer's market. And then I show them the stat for where they're looking. Then I show them that stat. So in Collier County, we're in, I don't know what stat, what last one, I think it was like 3.8 or 3.9. Was the months of inventory. I always start with the county, or in this case Collier, and then I go to the neighborhood. Because if the neighborhood's a different story, I need them to know it's a different story. Okay, and I'll show you guys how to pull all that. So that's the first. So let's actually just go and actually show you how to do it. So on MLS. And here's the thing, you have 2 different stat platforms here that you can use. You have, I don't know if you guys ever looked at it here, but there's stats here on the top bar. It says stats. That's the one we're going to utilize. InfoSparks is also another great one. The only thing with InfoSparks from my experience using it is that I don't think it gets really local to like a sub community name. At least maybe I just need to know how to use it, but I'll show you the way I've always done it. So I'm going to go to stats and then we're pulling residential stats. So hit residential. And then on the left-hand side here, well, first thing is, so let's pick a neighborhood so we can actually, we know Naples number is, let's, last week we did Golden Gate City, so you guys, let's just go with that one. Were you guys here when I did the CMA?
I was.
Okay, so when we did Golden Gate City, so let's find out the stats for Golden Gate City. So the easy way to do that, and it's easy with this one because in the development name, I can simply put Golden Gate City. If you had any other community name, give me another community name just so that I can keep it. Palm, don't you?
Palm River.
So Palm River, I think Palm River has its own little section. There you go, Palm River. So pick your community. Now, if it was gonna be all of Naples that we were gonna do, then we wouldn't pick a community and we strictly would do down here, we'd click Naples. Let's do that so we can have some fun with this. So we're gonna click just Naples, and then, we're down here on the building design, you can actually pick if you wanna just look at the inventory for a single family home or low rise, obviously, would that be a difference?
Yeah,
Like-
more condos and.
Yeah, so let's focus on just single family for right now. We're gonna focus on Naples property, single family, and I wanna see what the months of inventory look like. So then over here on the left-hand side, you can go to customize. And then and then the first thing you have to select is the time frame. So I always just do year to date. If it's like obviously January, then I might just go past 12 months. So I'm gonna go year to date, we're already 6 months into it, so that's the first thing, and then what stat do we wanna look at? So here's all the stats that I can pull for you. Everything that we just talked about here is available. So for example, the first one we're gonna look at is months of inventory, so we're gonna click on months of inventory. And I like the column view, and I want it grouped by months, I can do it, I think, yeah, that's the only option, is group by month. So right now, the way we have this set up is that we're gonna see month of inventory for single family homes in Naples. Now, what would happen, Adam, if I click pool yes?
Only place the pools.
It's only gonna give me the data for a pool home, so you gotta be very cautious about not put too many detail or criterias. I just keep it simple to what the type of product it is. So if it's a Naples home, single family, let's see what the inventory is in Naples. So we're gonna hit generate right here. And then it'll pull up the data. Now, I'm like super simple. I just literally printed these charts and brought it to the appointment with me. Let's give it a second, generate. There you go. So what does it show us? It shows for Naples single family homes, we were just a little bit north, so 8 months in January, 7 in February, and so forth. Now, I never really look at the month we're in because it's not accurate to the month closed out. We're still in June, so don't look at that. In May, we ended at just 5 months of inventory. And this one, month before, we've shown 6 months of inventory for single family homes under Naples. So where does that put us? Where does that put us over here?
Stable, pretty much.
Yeah, puts us in stable. Now, if I add condos in there, it's gonna change things up, so I can go back to search. I'm on just Naples, built design, single family. Let's do this. Let's put all designs. Let's do this. Let's take away the design here and let's click here on the ownership description. Now these fields here, you can change down at the bottom. So you can add more features if you wanted to, just like you would with the home search. But let's do this. Let's just see everything that's condo and everything that's single family. And I hit generate, see how the data changes. Generate. Okay, last month, 4 months. So yeah, once you start incorporating some condos, I mean, we're a little bit closer to the seller side. It was really 4 months of inventory, last couple of months, 5 here, 5 here, 4 here. So you can see how it's starting to fluctuate based on now what you're including, which in this case was condos and single family homes. So my advice, start with Jeff's stats. I would just have Jeff's chart when I recreate the wheel and then use this feature to get hyperlocal to the neighborhood. So let's go back to the example we started with, which is Golden Gate City. So I want to make sure I have a clean start. So I'm going to go back to stats, residential. Let's click Golden Gate City. We're going to customize the top. And then I just want to see year to date the statistic for a month of inventory. And actually, you know what? I'm going to hit single family because there are some condos in Golden Gate City. And single family design and hit generate. There we go. So in Golden Gate City, 4 months of inventory last month. The month before that was 3. The month before that was 2. We had a month where it was just a huge increase of homes. That's probably where the buyers or the sellers were like, oh my God, we didn't get our property sold. in season, and we always typically see this, generally speaking, January, February, we see a huge spike in listings. So what would we say about Golden Gate City as it relates to months of inventory? What market is it in Golden Gate City? The seller market. Now, why is this important to share this with the buyer as it relates to the buyer council? Why do we want the buyer to understand it's a buyer's or seller's market in Golden Gate City? Not enough inventory. What's yours? Possibly. Yeah, both of you are right. I want to set the tone up front that, hey, listen, in Golden Gate City, it is a seller's market right now.
Basically, they're.
So it's a pretty strong market still there. But let's go deeper now and find out what homes are actually selling for. So then I jump from months of inventory to the list price to close price ratio. So let's go do that now. So I'm gonna go back to search. I'm not gonna change anything because I already have it set up for Golden Gate City and single family homes. What I'm gonna do is just go to statistic here and I'm gonna change it to list price. Here we go. Close price to list price ratio. There we go. So we're gonna go list price to close price ratio. And we're gonna hit generate. Ooh. So again, don't look at June. So in January, homes are selling to 97% to list price. In February, March, and April, what were they selling for? Yeah, they were at or above list price. In May, slight little drop down to 96%. So if I'm a buyer, I'm selling them, hey, homes for the most part over the year to date have been selling anywhere between 96 to really 100% or more of its list price. So what that means, Adam, is that, take your calculator, I will help me with this. So what that means, Adam, if we're looking at a $500,000 home, we can expect to pay anywhere between, give me 96% of that, about 500,000.
480,000.
480, what?
480.
480, yeah. So Adam, we can expect to be offering anywhere probably between 480 to probably full list price.
Yeah, so you're not low, you're not bidding low and then getting outbid all the time.
Yeah, well, we can't go there. If we offer lower than that, there's a high probability we're not gonna get the home. And homes with a good price, good condition, they're gonna sell. And so far it's telling us they are, because first off, the inventory is in favor of the buyer, or the seller, I'm sorry. And we're already seeing, I mean, yes, we had a little drop in May, but the reality is for most of the year, we're pretty close to 100% to list price. So we can expect very little negotiation. I'm not saying we don't. At the end of the day, you represent the buyer and you need to educate them. And sometimes there's just that buyer that wants to make that offer at X price that's lower than list. But here's what happens when you start to present this up front. They're already mentally preparing, and you do this with them. You say, hey, so as an example, a $500,000 purchase price, and I would just use like the average price point in the neighborhood, we can roughly expect to be around X. So at a $500,000 home, we're expecting to be anywhere between about 480 to about 500 on that property. Now, let me show you something else that's pretty neat. This, you can choose whether you want to present this or not. I typically don't. So let me show you this. I'm going to go to advanced options, and I'm going to do a secondary stat. Now, the secondary stat is I'm going to do close price to original price. Now, this one I generally like to present to the sellers. This is one I bring to the sellers. Well, no difference. That actually even proves the point even further that the market's strong in there. So close price to original price. So let's say, for example, I listed the property at 500,000 and I sell it for 480. Well, that's 96% the list price. But now, help me with the math here. Let's say, so let's say, Adam, I listed it at 500,000. I dropped it to 450. And then eventually I ended up selling for 425. Give me what's 425 as a percentage of this number, 500,000. So I think you gotta do, was it 425 divided by 500,000? What's that percentage?
85%.
All right. So it sold to truly 85% of its original price. That's all that stat is saying. But the fact that they're even, what is that? Like, it wasn't any price drops.
Yeah.
So normally what would, somebody might say to you, well, a house sold for 96% the list price, or you sold 100% the list price. Sure it did. But when you look at it where it was to its original price, then there's generally gonna be a difference. And that's where you can see, well, wait a minute, there were price reductions. That again just helps you to further explain to the seller and to the buyer where, where we need to be as far as price goes. So this right here, if I were to present this to a buyer, I would say, here's what it means. And what it also means is that, hey, there's homes are selling for what they're listed for. We're not seeing a big reduction in price in this neighborhood. We're prepping them for a strong offer. We're prepping them for a strong offer. So that's the second stat that we're looking at. Now, another one, so simple one, days on market. So let me hit search. And I'm gonna remove this secondary stat. I don't want it anymore, so I'm just gonna hit none. And all I did to get that feature is hit advanced options. So then I hit hide advanced and it takes it away. So let's look at average days to sell. Generate. Ooh, that's interesting. So it started the year off at 118, but then it went to 16 days, 72, and then it dropped down again, 7 days to sell, 21 days to sell. What conclusion are we making here?
Well, it's selling quicker in that area.
Yeah, homes are selling quicker. So as a buyer, what does that mean though?
You can see an option where if you like something in there, you have to click on it.
You gotta move on it quick. Buyers will say things like, you don't want to sleep on it.
And they sleep on it.
It's gone. They're gonna sleep on it, then someone else is gonna sleep in it.
Yeah, because that happened. I went to look at a house the other day and then I got a call after the show. They're like, hey, how do you like a place? I just want to give you a call because I have an offer on there already.
Yeah.
I was like, I appreciate that call.
Yeah, I'm gonna prep you for this right now. The weirdest thing is gonna happen when the market's back to this, like full-fledged, there's no doubt about it. The weirdest thing is gonna happen. You're gonna see a home on the market for 6 months. You're gonna go see it, your buyer sleeps on it, they love it, and then there's multiple offers on it. Weirdest thing, after 6 months of it sitting, now when my customer comes in, there's a multiple offer, so.
You're gonna show the house and then there's like an offer in it already.
Yeah, so right now, this is telling me, hey, the market's in favor of sellers, home prices are strong in here, there's not a lot of negotiating. We gotta come in with a strong offer, and the homes are selling quick. So, when you see the right property, we gotta understand that we need to move on it quick, or someone else will first. Yeah, now, that's it, that's all I literally do for the buyer side. And then we get into the actual needs analysis. That's where you go over like the lifestyle questions. It's a ton of questions that you need to go through with them, and kind of give you the quick script on that, because when you first see that, if you haven't already seen the needs analysis playbook, it looks long when you first look at it. And I just kind of joke with them and say, hey, I'd rather ask you 500 questions today, show you 5 homes, versus ask only 5 questions and have to show you 500 homes.
Buyer thing.
It's from, those are Ignite scripts. Yeah, everything I just stated right there is Ignite. Now let me show, okay, so that's it on the buyer side, but I want to talk about some of these other things here real quick, because I think there's some value here to knowing how to use these other stats with a seller. Now with a seller, I'm using, for the most part, all 3 actually, seller. I'm using all 3 stats, but one other stat I encourage you to use, it'll kind of really tie in absorption, but I like to physically show it to them, is the actives listing. So here's what you're going to do. So we're going to go back to search, and we're going to keep it the same way. We're going to keep going in Golden Gate City, and what we're going to do is click on the first option. We want to see where is it? Number of no, that's number of sales. Where is it? There we go. Number of active listings. Look at that second option, number of active listings, and I want to do advanced option, and I want to compare that to number of sales. All right, so we're gonna compare number of active listings versus number of sales generated. Tell me the story you're concluding when you see this. What do you guys see?
More active than sales,
Say it again.
more active than sales.
Okay. Does that prove Jeff's absorption rate number? Roughly?
Roughly.
Yeah. So it shows us in this scenario, let's look at just May. It shows us that in May, in Golden Gate, there were 20, you have to hover over 26 homes per sale. Only 7 homes sold. It's a similar story the month before. The month before, there was 25 homes per sale and 8 sold.
Around 32. Right there.
So what we're looking, what we're doing with the stat is saying, Adam, our goal today to find the price and show the home in the best possible condition that's going to make it one of the 6, 7, or 8 homes that are selling every month. Because we're entering a competition now. And you were there for the CMA class, right? Yeah, you were there. All right. So remember in that class where I did mention that how we look at actives. We look at actives. All right. Well, what's for sale? What are the consumers have to choose from? Only one can sell. So everything today is that we got to decide on the price and make sure that we market the property in a way that's going to be one of those 3 songs that we can sell. So again, this is active listings versus sales. So all 4 of these stats are the stats you want to get really comfortable pulling up for any given area. Because here's the thing. And let me see if I can find the other stats. Do this. I just sent it to my database, so let me find it real fast. All right, look at this one. This is yeah, the main one. So let's see the absorption rate. You see it right there above single family. So it shows 34%. What is that? What you just gave me?
I think 32.
Yeah, right. Yeah, round up. So we're seeing 3.9 months of inventory, 34% on absorption. What else? And then the list price to close price ratios. There's some consistency for the most part on what? Pretty much all of it. Yeah. So the Collier County data is pretty spot on for Golden Gate City. Pretty spot on for Golden Gate City. Now, let's do something. Let's do stats. We're gonna go back to search. We're gonna remove Golden Gate City. We'll leave single family. And let's see if we can find a neighborhood real fast. We'll just spit out a few where the story is different.
Try Naples Park.
Try it. Yeah. The hot area is in.
Yeah, it's a hot area.
So do you think the inventory is gonna be lower than the average based on months of inventory?
The thing is that houses are priced high there now.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. All right, let's check it out. See what Naples Park said. Yeah, they're high. They're high. Look at that. Naples Park last month. They're sitting at 14 months of inventory. 10 months. So it's a buyer's market in Naples Park. Buyer's market. The buyer's market in Naples Park. Yeah.
But then the price high too.
And the price high, so that's also creating more, you're seeing less sales happening. While we're there, let's just look at that. Let's look at the active number of listings for sale versus how many actually sell. See how that. that. I haven't even looked at Naples Park, but Jesus, it's saying that there's over. In May, there was 110 listings in there, and only 8 sold. So imagine me as a seller when they want to overprice it. I'm like, hey, listen, here's what the market's showing.
Probably 50% right there, say 50%.
Yeah, so it's interesting because here's the thing, how many agents and how many consumers are seeing this data, convinced that, hey, it's a seller's market, and it's not in their neighborhood. Not in their neighborhood. Look at another one. There was a little activity in April, there was nothing available. May, 3 months of inventory earlier in the year. There was in January, started off strong with a lot of inventory in there. Comparison, 10 months, February, 10 months into March. So, I mean, you can add up the numbers and do the average of them, and they will give you your indicator. It looks like probably more on the buyer side. Yeah. Want to check another one? What else? Let's check on. Let me check Golden Gate States because I want to compare something. I want to see if you guys see what I see. Golden Gate States. What do you think Golden Gate States can be? Sellers or buyers?
So, like a lot of people,
Why do you assume that?
it's supposedly the cheaper part of Naples.
I'm saying that's why I think Golden Gate City.
Your housing, it's cheaper too.
That's why I think Golden Gate City is so strong. It's in town, and that's where you're going to find a single family home, no HOA, in a lower quote unquote price point. So I think so too. Interesting. So last month, 4 months, yeah, still sellers. It went up a little bit 6 months there, and then back to 4 months again. So yeah, they're almost stable actually. They're almost stable. Golden Gate City. Or states, I'm sorry.
When you compare the listings that sold, it's
Let's look at that. I don't have it up. So let's look at active number of listings versus number of sales.
they have a lot of listings out there.
Yeah. Wow, I think it's quite a bit.
11% of them.
It's quite a bit. So it's interesting as I look at this because here's where you even have to have that conversation. This is a tough conversation to have with somebody to tell them, hey, maybe month of inventory states that you're a stable and or seller's market, but absorption does not. Data. Absorption says no. Absorption says 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 are going to sell. So we need to price it right. When you're having, here's what it comes down to this, guys, when you're having these conversations with buyers and sellers, I've always been on the side that, first off, we're having 2 conversations, really. We're having a conversation about, let's say, for example, the seller. We're having 2 conversations. The first one we're really having is, hey, do you want to hire me for the job of getting your property sold? And that's not dependent on me telling you the price. Based on, do you like my services, my marketing plan? Do you like what I do to sell properties? Yes, I want to hire you to get the property. So now as a team, we're going to decide together what price we're going to quote because the numbers are the numbers. I don't make the market. We only interpret it. So you guys want to get really good at looking at this data and interpreting what it means. So like what you just said right now about the reason why it's a buyer's or seller's market, because yeah, it's a more affordable price point. It's a more affordable price point. So get really good at pulling the stats up and telling a story with those stats. And it really all starts with Jeff. Start with the ones that Jeff sends out, get really good with those. But then also, and you know, I think about this, I always think about the scenario, like you're at Publix and you run into somebody and they see your name tag, oh, well, how's the market doing? Well, it depends. Why do you ask? Are you thinking of buying or are you thinking of selling? Because my answer is gonna be different.
That's totally different in different areas.
Yeah. So I could say, you know, that's a great question. So you're thinking of selling overall, Collier County for the most part, it's still in a seller's market. However, 1 in 3 homes are selling, so what I would tell you with that is that real estate is very hyper local. And we really need to take a good look at the neighborhood you live in. Where do you live? Okay, Naples Park, great. Let's do this, let's set up an appointment. I might talk about Naples Park, even though I just pulled it up. No, we're gonna set up an appointment. Assuming, obviously, they're asking these questions because they're interested in potentially
Most
selling.
likely you won't have just the neighbor.
Exactly,
So you would-
yeah. You know, another thing, I'm gonna prove one other point with this too, and then I'm gonna I got 10 minutes, so I'm gonna kind of let you guys just ask any questions you guys have. There used to be a comment sellers would make that, most buyers don't care what office you're at. Most, they don't even look at it. Sellers sometimes probably they don't really care, but sometimes they do look at it. So I used to get asked questions like, well, you're at the Naples office and I'm over here in Lehigh, Kid Coral taking listings. Or vice versa, the Fort Myers agent that says Fort Myers in the islands and they're out here in Naples taking listings. Or you'll get the objection of, you know, I'm gonna list a property with a guy who's the neighborhood expert that lives in my community. Guy or girl that lives in my community. How would you object that? How can we use this to handle those objections?
You're trying to pull like market stuff, like the market.
Yeah, how does having all this knowledge, ability to pull the data, help you overcome the objection of, oh, I'm gonna go with the guy who lives in my neighborhood?
You could ask him what, or, you know, actually, what they've told him about the market.
Okay, what else? So, we're talking about seller right now. It's mostly on the seller side, they would get objections about it.
I think they should ask him how many houses they sold in the neighborhood, if they're a neighborhood expert.
I wouldn't ask that.
It's not,
I wouldn't ask that because if I've never sold a house in there, then I'm gonna look pretty bad.
He's claiming to be the neighborhood expert.
Here's where I'm going with this. Are you looking to hire someone based on where they live or their ability to sell real estate? So you're hiring me based on my ability to understand the market, interpret the market, and position your house in the best way possible to sell the property. You can take this tool, jump into any market, Cape Coral, Lehigh, Fort Myers, you can go to Marco. We can all move to Tampa tomorrow, get access to Stellar, play with this for a couple of hours, and we are now market experts. We can go literally into any market today and become a local expert.
I'm gonna throw myself under the bus, because I can look at like this, the stat that we have here, and without you telling me and everything, I can look at it and I can see obviously in May that we had.
There you are.
That we had 86 sales in May and 347 listings. But I'm bad with math, so if I had somebody in front of me, a buyer in front of me, I would have a hard time insert myself, like going, okay. I mean, I can obviously see that we have a lot more listings than we're having sales, but I would have a hard time maybe articulating that in a way that would be confident, if
Well,
that's.
that's just practice. Yeah, what you guys have to start doing now is, when you're previewing property, when you're showing people property, even if it's a rental, understand what's happening in that rental market.
It's too high right now.
Say again?
The rental market's high right now.
Yeah, well, no, and let me go back for a second. What I mean by that is like, if you're working a rental in Naples Park, new area, we don't know any of this stuff, make it a point just to learn what's happening in sales in that area, pull up all the same stats. Because what's gonna happen is after a few weeks, few months of you just pulling stats up all the time with different areas, it's gonna be ingrained. And you can speak to it that quickly. Or within 2 minutes, you can go onto the MLS and become a local expert in a brand new neighborhood you've never been in. So you don't have to get beat out by that agent that lives in the community. As long as you have a solid marketing plan, you present yourself well, and you know how to speak to the market. All this stuff up here. Okay. Stop the record, Rose, we're good. What questions can I answer you guys Got a couple more minutes before I go to my next appointment.